All right, welcoming back to the show is Sean Tufts, NFL linebacker from 2004 to 2006 for the Carolina Panthers. Appreciate you being back on the show, Sean. We had a great discussion last time about your experience in the NFL, your draft day experience in particular. I know we had the fun Taco Bell story in there too, so that's always good. But I know you left us on a cliffhanger, kind of teased a story about the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh,
And I think it was Christmas Day, if I'm not mistaken, something like that, in an airport. I love to hear the story now that we've got you back on to kick things off, but also looking forward to, of course, talking about all that other training camp stuff.
you bring up so much PSD on that thing.
Sorry,
I'd forgotten about it for like a month, and now it's back. All right, yeah. So the story. So, let's see. When I had gotten hurt, it was the end of the 06 season, so I was going into 7, and my knee was all jacked up, and it wasn't going to get right until like mid to end of the year anyway. So I was in the total wrong spot. My film was stale. You're now like there's a whole class of other rookies who have come and gotten churned out and are question marks, right? And question marks, if you remember, we talked a little bit about value engineering for players, right? The best thing you can be is what they know you can do. They get real afraid when they don't know what you can do or not do. So there's a whole new class of kids that are coming out while I was on the shelf getting rehabbed. So it came to about Thanksgiving before I was like, you know what? I'm just not getting a lot of calls. I'll probably, this is kind of like where I'm reading the writing on the wall here. And then I really like totally broke down right before Christmas. Sure enough, the Cowboys had always called me. Draft day, they called me. Free agency, they called me. They were always keeping me on the hook, but never actually doing the work, right? So they call me on Christmas Eve. I'll never forget it. They call me on Christmas Eve at like maybe 2 in the afternoon. And they're like, hey, pack a big bag because we're going to fly you down to Dallas tomorrow. And I was like, tomorrow? And they're like, tomorrow. And I said, Christmas? They said, Christmas. Okay. Because that was Tuesday. It's when they did all their stuff. And they work holidays, so they don't care. And so I'm talking to my agent, and he's like really excited for me. I needed 3 games left for full pension. And there's 3 games left in the season. So like all the stars are aligning. Yeah. I go to Dick's Sporting Goods and I get my mom a big Dallas star for the tree. My girlfriend then quit her job. She was like, I'm going to go do this thing with him this time and go to Dallas with him and that whole bit. And I'll never forget my kid. Now that I have young kids, my agent had young kids at the time. So at 8 in the morning, I'm up on Christmas Day, like, hey, where's the flight? Like, what are we doing? How are we doing things? And he's on the phone with me, and I can hear his kids erupting in the background, just losing it. Absolutely excited about toys and just cracked out on, Legos and all that kind of stuff. And so I was trying to give him a little space. So we kind of were playing it cool all day. Hadn't heard from the club. 10 o'clock in the morning turns into, noon. At that point, I'm like, hey, it's noon. I'm guessing the travel agency people have kids too. So I'm just going to go to the airport at like noon because I didn't want them to call and be like, hey, you have a flight in 10 minutes and I'm an hour and a half away, right? That'd be terrible. So I live in Denver. I'd go drive to DIA and I sat in this one corner of the parking lot that I don't go back to anymore. I'm going to the airport tonight, not parking there. And I sat until like 5, sunsets, 6, 7, calling the agent, calling the club, calling anybody I knew in Dallas, calling people I didn't even know, just hoping to talk to anybody. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Finally, my mom calls me and is like, hey, I think it's time for you to come home. And I'm in tears like, it's okay. Don't worry. And then the next day they signed somebody else. So I went home that night, and that was how my career ended, in the terrible corner of the DIA parking lot. And the worst part? I had to pay $60 to park there.
Oh, geez.
I didn't have $60.
And so they never communicated after, like, it was a total ghosting essentially.
Yeah, it was like ghosting before ghosting was cool. Like, thanks,
yeah,
Jones. What happened was they called 3 people that day. I was at best number 2. So the first guy apparently picked up the phone and was, more priority, or I'll never know. I remember I saw the guy's name go through. I don't even remember what his name was on the roster wire because they signed a linebacker the next day. I called my agent like, hey, did you know that? He was like, it's pretty bad, dude. So I'm going to send Jerry for $60.
Right? Yeah, seriously. Send him an invoice. It's a cutthroat business, man. It really is. I mean, gosh, I can't imagine how often that's probably a daily occurrence.
Oh yeah, especially right now because we're how many days off are we until cuts?
Tuesday is cuts. I don't know the exact time. I think it's usually right around like 4 or 5 o'clock. So yeah, on Tuesday, we're 2 days away.
Oh,
So yeah, they're getting right to it, and people poaching, trying to poach other guys that aren't going to be making their respective teams, and there's just I can't imagine the amount of phone calls that people are fielding and stuff like that. So that's why I'm excited to talk to you, because obviously, like you've been in the NFL world, you've gotten to peek behind the curtain in a lot of these, and so we can kind of go in succession from how this whole thing progresses throughout a summer. Um, if you can take me back to 2004 training camp. Let's just talk about training camp and what it's like. You were in 3 of them, correct?
yep.
So you've had to experience training camp from a couple different, points of view. I'm curious what the dynamics are like there in training camp, because obviously, the veterans are still wanting to, get back into football shape and things like that. But there's the dynamics of the guys who know they're making the team and, are just kind of working on themselves, honing their craft. And there's the rookies who don't know what they're doing at all. There's the, guys who bounced around a few times trying to make a job. So how do you make sense of all of that? And what was your experience like at training camp?
There's 4 personas in camp. There's there's 2 veteran and 2, I'd say rookie's not the right term, because you can still act like a rookie being in your 3rd or 4th year, right? Because you're either immature as a person or
unproven.
You haven't got the right looks, you haven't got the right game film. Like you can still functionally be like coming off of 4 years of practice squad and still be looked at the club like a brand new guy. So I would say from a veteran perspective, you got a core group in every city that they know they're in that core group, right? The $10 million man, right? Like they know they're not getting cut. And they're going in with a different goal set. They're like, I want to do Super Bowl. I want to build this team. I want to build my own deck. So they're going in to stay healthy in the camp. They're going in to improve some things that, kept them out of the Pro Bowl or, whatever. So they've got a different agenda. And so that for me was a guy named Steven Davis. Remember that guy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
He was winding his career down in Carolina, and he knew he was like kind of on the last like 1 or 2 years, but he was going to get those 1 or 2 years. So every time, and I was a rookie, and I was 18 or what was I? I was 22, made of metal, could do anything I wanted athletically. And every time I got near that guy, he'd curse me out. Don't touch me. What are you doing? I don't want to get hurt in camp. That's what he didn't want to do, because he had sensitive knees, and I got it. And I'm running up and like hitting him on the butt, and he didn't want any of that. So that's one persona. The second persona is the vet that doesn't know. The vet that just is like, you know what? They called me in on this contract. I'm making, $1 million a year or something like that. It's good. It's not great. I don't know if they really like me. They brought in this other guy. So that guy's a little on the edge. So his behavior is going to be calm, collected, cool, nervous as hell. Because they know that they're kind of like, if something doesn't work out, man, it's just not going to be easy to get back in the league in your 8th, 9th year. Maybe this is your last go round and you don't know it. So those guys they behave like rookies, but they don't look like rookies. So then on the other side, I remember my first year when I got a little more experience, you land in a place and you don't know anybody. It's like the first day of kindergarten is what it feels like. You got to walk in and figure out which teachers like you, who's going to help you, what equipment guy is going to get me my stuff, like where's lunch, right? And you're just walking out like your eyes are like dinner plates and you don't know what's going on, and you got a job to do, and like give me a helmet and give me cleats and get out of my way. And you're trying to find who you can trust, because there's in any locker room, there's let's say linebackers, they'll go into camp with 4 to 5 deep at every linebacker position, right? That's what I know. And you don't know who's going to be friendly with you or not. I had one great peer, a guy named Chris Draft. He was in his 6th or 7th year out of Stanford. He was confident in who he was, and he was going to help me to his own detriment. But he was like, you know what, man, if I give you this tip and you beat me out for it, so be it. I don't care. I had another guy who would tell me the exact wrong answer and things to do that shouldn't be done and wrong ways to do things, because he was trying to sabotage me. So you're walking around trying to figure that out. Who's got my back? Who doesn't? And it's zero sum. You're competing with guys, and at the end of camp, 25 guys never put on a helmet again. And you got to live with that.
I'm curious too. You brought up the veteran who's maybe signing a vet minimum deal type of thing, and they're on edge trying to see if they're going to make the team. I wonder from your perspective, and obviously this is a front office deal, but do you think that front offices weigh do we keep maybe the veteran guy is slightly better, but he costs more? Now, these are obviously negligible to a team, but we're talking $250,000 more, or however much more. Do you think that's something that they weigh? Would we rather take the rookie who's maybe not as good, but he's cheaper? So maybe like if they're a roster bubble kind of person, we'll go that route and let the veteran, go someone else pay that guy.
Yeah, it's a whole package, and that's probably the biggest artistic point in all of sports is that GM role, trying to figure that equation out. What I've boiled it down to from what I can tell from the inside out, it's 100% starts with risk. How risky are you as a person? Meaning your personal life. Antonio Brown holds more risk than Tim Tebow, right? Tim Tebow's going to be on church on Sundays. You don't know where Antonio's going to be, right? So personality risk, performance risk for sure. We kept a guy that was a left tackle that was just barely awful. He was just barely even there. He was a big redneck. I won't say where he's from. And you know what? He was consistent in his awfulness. So you knew exactly what he was going to do and be capable of. And you knew exactly what he couldn't do. So he had a very tight window of risk. If you look at risk like a bell curve, you knew where he was going to perform every single time. And it was a little below the average, but you knew it. When I was a rookie, they had no idea. I could do a backflip and catch a pick one play and then absolutely fall on my face the next play and not even get the call of the play out, right? So I had a really wide risk threshold. So for me, the GM equation, when you're looking at players all over the spectrum, you're calculating that risk. A dollar portion is definitely in the mix there. If you are more risky, they are a little tighter on budget. So if you're making 20 million and they don't really know who you are yet, you're probably going to get flushed faster than if you're making 500K and they know exactly what you can do. So that definitely, economics come into it for sure, how close you are to the cap, a lot of other like structural things, but more than that, it's just straight up risk.
You traveled for every training camp you did, right? Because you guys came out to South Carolina. Or did you stay in Charlotte for one of those years?
No, we did Spartanburg, South Carolina.
You're at Wofford? Okay. Yeah. I'm curious because like the Steelers do the same thing. They're one of like the few teams now that still travel every year. They go to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, but a lot of teams do it in-house. Like in your view, do you have an opinion on like what's better? Do you think that traveling and kind of being away from your own environment is beneficial, or do you think that there's, some negatives to that?
I think for rookies, it's really beneficial because you get to come together and like squish a team together in one area, no distractions, nothing's going to get you like not thinking about football, right? Every moment from when you go to sleep to when you wake up, which is a big, long day, you're doing treatment, you're getting right, you're getting healthy, you're doing your stuff. There's something about being kidnapped at a tiny college campus like Latrobe or Wofford, South Carolina, right? Comfort is a factor. There was no air conditioning in Wofford, South Carolina in the dorms. We slept in dorm double wide. What are those like? No, a single long or something, like some random bed things. So we were putting 350-pound men on a dorm bed.
Good Lord.
So the vets were bringing in they were getting mattresses delivered and water beds and having big screen TVs and all that. Rookies didn't do that. We just slept in the crap bed. But as a veteran, and if I had kids, I would want to go home at night. So I don't know. Depends on who your team is.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
And some teams need a binding agent, right? Some teams need to have that coal in the diamond thing. So some of them
we're all in it in the same thing together, right? Yeah. We're not coming to it from different situations. Yeah, no, that's an interesting perspective. But I always found that unique how these teams do it differently, and they all have their own philosophies on what's best.
Have you heard Mike McDaniel's story on this?
On traveling for training camp? No, I haven't. I'm surprised because I see a lot of Mike McDaniel videos.
I don't know this guy at all. We grew up at the neighboring high school. We played him in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he grew up. That makes sense. I mean, he was part of the Shanahan wing and stuff like that. So, yeah.
But do you know how he got to start?
Was he a ball boy? Wasn't he like a ball boy or something like that? Yep. Is that what it was? The Broncos?
He grew up in a little town called Greeley, which is like a Spartanburg Latrobe type. And we used to do the Broncos did practice there at their training camp at University of Northern Colorado. And he lived there. His mom sold meat. It's a meat packing town. His mom sold meat door to door. So she would drop him off at camp for a month. And just when he was 8, 9 and way too young to be just dropped off, and he would make friends with everybody. And so he
Yeah,
made friends with the
that's
video
cool.
guy. The video guy ended up being his buddy, and then his mom started dating the video guy, and that's how he got the ball boy job. And then they moved all together as like a new nuclear family down to Dove Valley, where the Broncos are, and that's history.
That's wild. I mean, that the Shanahan coaching tree's got to be like the best that I've ever seen, or among them. I mean, Marty Schottenheimer had a really good coaching tree, but Shanahan's got his son Kyle, and then he's got Sean McVay, he's got Mike McDaniel. There was one other in there too that I missed, but yeah, no, it's pretty interesting that he's been able to have a lot of guys work under him, and yeah, Mike McDaniel. I mean, that's quite a story. That's pretty cool. When it comes to the preseason, I mean, now we only have 3 games. There were 4 when you were playing. I mean, I've always been of the mindset, like, I obviously as a fan, like, we don't like watching preseason games too much. I do because I'm like crazy nerdy like that and like to see all 90 players play. But the average fan doesn't enjoy it. But I always thought, what like the benefit of a guy getting an extra game to prove himself always seemed fair to me, and so I always like thought about that when they cut it down to 3. I mean, what's your take on that? I mean, is that extra game super valuable, or should guys be able to show what they can do in the 3 games regardless? I mean, do teams already know by that point usually?
The teams might know, but the other teams don't, which is the hard part. So you can be on a third line and just buried on a roster, and you didn't have any choice. I didn't have a choice where I went. I got drafted by Carolina. I wouldn't. Eli Manning was in my class. He had a choice. I didn't. They told me to go somewhere, and I went there. I'd never been into South Carolina before, and they told me to go, and I had no choice. I could have been buried on the roster, and in some ways I was. In some ways I wasn't. I think it's a real detriment to the value of the league not having more opportunities for those guys to show their stuff in live bullet fire. So what ends up happening is you might get buried on your depth chart, and if you could be just standing on the field, then coach will say, hey, you got the next series of snaps, and then the game ends.
Yeah.
Sorry, kid. Or you go out and your dumb corner gets a pick and turns it for a touchdown, and then you don't get a play. And so there's a lot of guys whose careers don't even get started because they don't get that shot. So cutting down from 4 to 3 really is hurting the developmental component of the league, which is struggling anyway, given that, XFL can't figure itself out, NFL Europe folded. There are not a lot of good options there, and they're sacrificing their own for – I'll criticize the NFL for greed. They want the 17th and 18th game because they make more money. So that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and it affects the ability to find those diamonds in the rough a little bit better and things like that. I mean,
and at a couple positions, you need that quarterback. We need to be trying out more Kirk Cousins of the world. We have to. And if we don't, we're going to keep getting guys that are just not – we're going to have continued franchises that just can't find a quarterback for 25 years.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I mean, I always think it seems like the most glaring example of preseason is that one play can do a lot for a guy. Terrell Davis is literally like he by all accounts got the roster spot because he made an incredible special teams tackle, and they're like, oh, that's a football player right there.
Yep.
And then he turns into TD. So it's just
your internal club has 50 hours of tape on you because they let those third line, fourth line guys play in practice, but you're not broadcasting that to the whole league.
Yeah,
like when
they don't have that tape to show other teams, right?
Yeah, and you can say I had really good practice film, and they say we don't give it. Go home.
Right. Yeah. See, and that stinks too. I mean, obviously it makes sense. Like people want their practice footage getting out there to other teams, but at the same time, like maybe that's your best body of work right there, and you can't show it.
All right. Do you want to hear my first year cut story?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we had a big board of production, and every time you got a sack in practice or a game or a fumble or just a tackle, you'd put a tally on the thing. It was weighted and fun. It was cool. Linebackers, D-line, and corner or defensive backs all were in competition for one thing. At the time, iPods had just come out, like the little skinny one, right?
Oh, yeah. So the Nanos or whatever?
Yeah, the Nanos, yeah.
Yeah.
So he had 3 of them, the DC, and he was like, yeah, we're going to give one to each position. Okay, cool. Julius Peppers out to a commanding lead at the start of camp, just absolutely murdering on points. Hall of Famer, like – no one could block that guy in all of the league, let alone training camp. Ricky Manning Jr., who was a UCLA guy, played in, had 3 picks in an NFC title game, like just a great player. Unheralded, I think, a little underpublished. And he was running first line. Obviously, he was a starter, and he was racking up points, so he was dominating there. And then I was running third team, and we had this cat that just could not block at the end of the line. He was playing left tackle, and we kept running me off the edge. And this guy was slow-footed, and he was never going to make the training camp. I don't know why he was there. And every time I probably got 15 to 30 sacks off this guy in third line. And I was just running directly by him. I wasn't even putting a move on him. I was just a little bit faster and figured this out. So I won for us. So linebackers, I won. So Dan Morgan, who's not the GM, he's making like $30 million a year, and I'm cleaning up the iPad. So I go in. It was a baller move. I went in. I got the little iPod thing, and cuts were the same day. Guess who got cut? Still holding his little iTouch or whatever that thing was. So I'm holding it, and the coach cuts me, and I just slide it back on the table and walked out.
Oh man,
brutal.
How about that? That's, I mean, and you basically know when you get called to the office.
Oh
like,
yeah,
is that's the call of death, so to speak?
That HBO is so real. You're sitting by your phone. You're walking through the lobby. You're hiding. I was hiding in a locker the second time I got cut. Like, you're just like your locker's kind of big, so you're kind of like sitting way back, and the guy walks by, and you're like, oh. Yeah. And yeah, it's totally that moment on HBO. Everybody that's on the bubble is kind of like iffy that day, and you're either doing your workouts or you're just doing anything to keep yourself busy.
Yeah. And is it basically, I mean, you don't know that you made it until the clock just hits the deadline? Is that really like when guys know that they've made it? They have to sweat it until the 11th hour, basically?
Most clubs will do a team meeting that day at like 6, so they can process all the guys out, and then they'll be like, hey, this is our team meeting. But until 5:59, you could be walking in that door, and they could still be deciding or whatever. So I would say, until you're in that meeting and the door shuts, you're on edge. Everybody's on edge. Just like, what's going to happen? Like, where are my friends, right? I got close with this guy, now he's gone. I was sitting behind a guy in the roster that cut him ahead of me. Like, what's that about? So I would say there's probably, of the 53 spots, I would say there's 10 to 15 every year that are contentious, right? It could go one way or another. They could keep an extra running back and then cut a linebacker, and you're kind of balancing that special teams piece. And so a lot of guys, I remember sitting at the top of the Holiday Inn in Charlotte, North Carolina, 10 of us. They were putting us up in that hotel. There was a pool up on like the 30th floor or something crazy. And we're all sitting there like exhausted, proud we did something hard. And all of us are sitting here saying, what if they keep this guy and then they cut him? What about that vet? And we were going through all the possible scenarios. And you know what? All wrong. We got it all wrong. I remember one guy was packing his bag because he was like, I'm definitely out of here. There's no way I'm coming back. I'm a backup long snapper. That was his legitimate position. He made it.
Wow.
You don't know what the GMs are thinking. You don't know what the head coaches want. You can't do the crystal ball on where they predict that value score of someone else. And you never know.
So how many times did you unfortunately experience that?
I got cut all the time. I got cut mid-season. I probably got cut 5 times. And then like towards the end, it was like, hey, I'm just going to keep my bag here. And they were like, yeah, it's probably fair. We're going to bring you back in 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay.
Well, so it's a good example though, too, of like how it's a lot of it's pressing forward too. I mean, we're going to see a lot of guys getting cut for the first time in the next couple of days. How do you, what does the mindset have to be in order for them to like keep their career going? Because I could imagine, as like a layman who's never been in the NFL, that could be completely soul crushing, and certain guys could take it the wrong way to where they don't think they even stand a chance again, you know?
Oh man, every team brings in like a local guy from the local small college, right? I remember sitting next to a cat. I won't mention his name. He didn't really deserve to be there, but he was kind of an all-star at one of the little local schools. And I remember he was singing about a really violent rap lyric, and it was just about killing his coworkers and like crazy lyrics. Like, and I heard him sitting that, and it was like, are you singing this song? What are you doing? Where'd this come from? And the next day we sit down for lunch, and he looks at me and goes, hey man, the FBI come to your room this morning? No, they didn't. And then like,
that's not normal.
That's not normal. No, you're at, and then he was gone within 25 minutes.
Wow.
So there's two verbiages that if you listen to Hard Knocks that the coaches will say. They'll say, "We loved having you in camp." All the stupid Bull Durham stuff they say, right? You were such a present to be like all that nonsense. Then at the end, they're going to say, "Hey, stick around town. That means we want you on practice squad."
Yeah.
They don't say stick around town or like keep your bags here, or like any verbiage there. That means we don't want to see you again. You're gone.
Yeah.
So that one's hard. And I've gotten both of those in the past. And then if you do get cut and you want to make practice squad, you've got to clear like 24 or 48 hours worth of waivers. Someone else could just grab you onto their roster and put you on active. So they wait around. So you end up like going home and packing a bag and calling your mom and crying. And then, you get the call that like, hey, we are actually going to bring you back out, come back to the locker room, re-unpack your hefty bag full of cleats. Like,
yeah. I mean, there's really not much time to wallow in it, right? Because within the next day, you could be on a plane somewhere else, or you could be circling back onto the practice squad. I mean, there's still jobs to be had. It's not the end of the world. For a lot of guys, it is. It's going to be the end. But for a lot, there's still definitely those opportunities out there.
I was lucky because I only played for one team, and it was relatively stagnant. My one of my best buddies, Sam Wilder, he played for 13 teams in less than 3 years. So like his collection of like workout day apparel is top notch. He's got everything.
I can imagine, yeah,
because he tried out for a lot of them. And so if what's cuts are Tuesday, if you want to see a site, go to your local airport on the day after cuts and look for the big dopey guy wearing the local colors, and he's going to have 2 big duffel bags because every one of those guys that does city after city has 2 big duffel bags. One of the duffel bags has like a collection of books, an Xbox, protein powder, like some like massage sticks and stuff like that, and the other one's full of clothes. And that's how you live your life for 3.5 to 5 years. And I told that story to Joel Klatt, who's a teammate of mine at Colorado, and he was like, "Oh yeah, minor league baseball was exactly the same. Like you just traveled light, you knew what you had to take, and you knew what could keep you busy in a terrible Holiday Inn in somewhere weird for months at a time."
Sure. If you do end up just having to go home, I'm guessing the teams don't pay your way after that point. Like once you're cut, they are like, oh, they do. Okay, all right. Well, they can at least do that. I guess I was like,
their travel departments are pretty good, and they'll put you on the best flight home. And like, they're not flying first class, but it's on their contractually they're obligated to get you back to where you want to be.
I gotcha. Okay, all right. Well, that's
I never thought about that though. If you were a vet and you just were going to live in that town, like, could you be like, I want to go to Tahiti?
Like, right. Yeah, exactly. That's actually, I'm actually living there now. So you send me back home, please.
I identify as Munich. I'm going there.
Real quick, just got a couple quick questions for you here, Sean, before we wrap this thing up. The benefit of being versatile, the benefit of special teams, what value does that bring for a roster bubble guy? I mean, we see most of these teams need gunners. Like those are important positions. They need, the long snappers. They need some of these dudes who can contribute in that way. Is that, when you were coming in as a rookie, like, were you of the mindset, obviously, like you want to eventually be the star middle linebacker for the team or outside linebacker, whatever it be, but do you have to kind of have the mindset of I'm going to like light up special teams so they know that I'm, valuable?
That is the only way to crawl through the system. If you're not a featured guy, meaning a first, second round pick, someone they want to play, you have to earn it through special teams, and they will try you through special teams. That it's a try before you buy scenario. So with the exception of the offensive line and nose tackles, inside defensive linemen, everybody has a spot to play. The most valuable special teams additions is going to be, you mentioned it, gunner, kick returner, obviously, kick returner, punt returner. The inside blockers on punt, that like guard center, like doing this move and blocking, those guys are probably the next tier of most important, and that's going to be a tight end, running back, or linebacker body, usually a bigger linebacker body. So running backs aren't as common there. And then on the blocking side of punt, that like outside wing guy who's usually a receiver type. you're going to have, if you have a good team, you have 5 special team aces that actually functionally might suck at their position. They might be the worst receiver at their in camp. You look at them and you're like, you're weird. Why are you so big, receiver? What are you doing? And he's just a monster on special teams, and he is bossing people and is making that work. So every roster will probably have 2 of those kind of awkward players, but career special teamers, and good on them. But yeah, you have to market yourself. If you're in the lower half of that equation where you don't know if you're going to make the team, you have to market yourself as having a position on teams. And if you're not doing that, then they're not keeping you.
For sure. Yeah, no, it's those seem to be super important. I mean, teams even end up going and signing guys specifically to play those roles if they don't even feel that they have one on their 90-man roster when they go through training camp and stuff.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss, Sean, if I didn't ask you quickly about the Broncos, since a lot's happening in Broncos country and you are out there in Colorado. By the way, is it Colorado or Colorado? Like, where do you stand on that divide? What is the
I'm not telling you. I'm not giving your listeners the secret to us knowing if you're from here or not. If you drive a Subaru and you're wearing Patagonia, we know you're not from here.
Yeah,
that's the visual clip.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, so they've got a rookie quarterback there in Denver now. It's been some down years for sure. Russell Wilson experiment didn't pan out terribly well.
Man,
Sean Payton paid a lot of money for him. And now Bo Nix has been named the starter too. So the rookie's getting the shot. I mean, what are the vibes that you're sensing out there in Denver Broncos country?
I would say half the NFL is always delusional this time of year, right? Like Browns fans are always like, hey, this is our year. Every year. Training camp, they're always every year. Browns, Bears, really that whole like central NFC, AFC teams. They're all Vikings, they're always like, oh, this is our year. We're definitely going this year. And Broncos fans are in that category. So Broncos fans are rabidly like just salivating over Bo Nix. Because look, he's showed poise. He has not made the typical typical rookie quarterback panic-looking moves. He's got experience. He seems like a calm customer. He seems like he's got control in the locker room. He's doing everything in the preseason that makes you want to get excited. And then you're like, he's a rookie. And then you want to jump
There's
out.
Always, yeah. Yeah, the biggest issue for the Broncos, too, is that unfortunately they play in a division with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. So that's always a tough
yeah, but then you also have the Raiders and the Chargers, which
fair. Yeah, we'll see if Jim Harbaugh. I'm optimistic about what Jim Harbaugh can bring to the Chargers this year and maybe get the most out of Justin Herbert. But yeah, we'll see. I know there's a lot of optimism though around Sean Payton finally getting his guys type of thing, because that relationship with Russell Wilson didn't seem to be going too terribly well.
Boy, that was fun to watch though. Like,
I'm sure the local media out there probably had just a field day with they had plenty of stories and material to talk about for days on end.
It was too bad to see Sean Payton take the low road. I did not enjoy that. I think the low road is reserved for the Raiders. And I think he just really lived down there during that Russell thing. And I think it made himself look really petty. And now I'm a fan. I don't know Sean Payton at all. I'm really trying to judge a guy and see, like, are you someone I would trust as a player, or are you someone I would run from? Because you're giving me I always call it the Philip Fulmer smile. Phil Fulmer out of Tennessee had this beautiful smile that he would make when he was about to totally screw you over. And
you knew it was coming, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so you knew that guy was shady. And I don't know if it's Sean Payton or not. I had a lot of respect for him. I lost a little, so now he's going to earn it back for me.
Fair enough. All right. Well, Sean, appreciate
you. You better do that or the podcast listeners will be pissed.
Yes, of course. Got to end on a high note. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I was going to be a dirtbag, but I heard this guy on this podcast, Football Lounge.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming back on, Sean. Thanks a lot. I'm sure we'll have you back on, either throughout the season or at the end of the season to recap things. But appreciate the perspective, and best of luck to all those players out there that are going to go through a tough time the next couple of days.
And if you see a guy in an airport on Thursday afternoon and he's got 2 big bags and he looks real sad, buy him a beer. He needs a beer.
There you go. Yeah, put your arm around the young man, and yeah, he's going to need it for sure. All right. Well, appreciate it, Sean, and we'll be talking again soon.